Good afternoon again, everyone. So I'm here to speak about PlaceCORE. PlaceCORE is a methodology developed in Consulus for place planning. And to start off with, we start with talking about COVID, because COVID uncovered a new dimension in place planning. It taught us that nations, regardless of size, regardless of level of economic development, and even cities, also applies to communities. Most, with very few exceptions, were affected by COVID. Vulnerabilities in communities were exposed, and government simply, could not have enough preparation to take care of everyone. So these past 2 years, we saw that COVID was a global disruptive event. I just wonder what the next disruptive event would be. It could be global in scope again, or it could be a country or a city scope. As such, place planning requires a holistic approach, and that aims for resilient and sustainable communities. Now, I would like to talk about some principles of PlaceCORE. Okay, the first principle is to plan your development adapting to changes in economic, environmental, and social changes. Of course, mindful of the fact that these changes will affect the way people live their lives. To cite a simple example, again, COVID imposed on us working from home. And using my home country as an example, before the pandemic, Manila was forecasted to become unbearable to live in 5 years. And it's because of the traffic problem. Simply, the infrastructure could not be there fast enough to take care of the increase for the demand of mobility all over the city. And COVID made us discover something, and I think this is one of the good things that came from COVID for me, because all of a sudden, the traffic problem disappeared. And even before COVID, the idea of working from home was already there, but its adoption was very small. So all of a sudden, working from home with the aid of digital technology, with the aid of Zoom, made it possible. So it's one of the things that, accelerated this phenomenon which we call work from home. And now that things are opening up, people are still working from home because companies actually realize that some employees actually can even be more productive working from home. So they've continued adapting it in industries where it makes sense. So think about it. Working from home as a simple solution that addresses the traffic problem. Of course, infrastructure for mobility is still important because we still have traffic in Manila. But, just to share this example. The second principle is creating synergistic project that maximizes both ingrained and unique identity and values of a community. This is interesting. In the past 2 years, we've been engaging towns, cities all over in the Philippines, talking about PlaceCORE. And when we talk about PlaceCORE, what resonates the most is this principle, the principle of identity. And again, to give you an example, there is a city in the Philippines where, its backbone actually is a university. In fact, the city was developed because of that university. And as such, infrastructure for students who are transient has to be in place. But a 10-minute walk brings you to a nice bayfront with nice restaurants. So tourism also came along. Speaking about the university, since there's rich marine life in the area, the university actually received some grants. So a marine sanctuary was put in place. And of course, marine biology became one of the offerings of the university. Now comes the important part of the story, because there was an idea to reclaim part of the bayfront, maximize the real estate that was available through reclamation. This created a lot of stir. A lot of people complained, especially a movement was started by the university, and this movement spread, and eventually the politicians had to give in. The investors were already in place. The developmental plan was already there. A few weeks before the signing of the MOA, the mayor had to, say, okay, we will delay this. And now they're at an impasse. So the lesson there is, what did they miss? No? It's the identity of the city and the values of the people who live there. And they simply, would not allow any type of development that would impact the environment, that could affect the marine sanctuary in the area. The next principle is to enable the organization in place. No? So the organization in place in PlaceCORE, we make sure that strategic choices are made. The steps towards development are clearly identified. But more importantly is the organization. So part of the work that we do is to identify roles, to identify deliverables of people, so that the vision can happen. Lastly, there's a need to create an implementation-ready, market-ready, smart city development that is holistic and comprehensive at every stage, addressing the requirements of infrastructure, quality design, and the authority approvals. So stakeholders and key movers in the community have to be mapped, like in the case of the previous example, which did not happen. And they need to be identified, they need to be engaged for a well-orchestrated place development. So in PlaceCORE, in the communities where we work, we often propose putting together an investment and innovation hub to make sure that the private sector investments that come in are the ones that make sense according to plan. It also makes sense to watch out for possibilities in terms of synergies with nearby towns and communities. And this is a trend that we are seeing more and more, wherein planning no longer happens on a city level, but sometimes there are 2, 3 cities who join hands and see how they can plan together to make the most out of the synergies. Now, people like me, and I suppose many of us here, love to take short trips to travel. And we all have our favorite places. No? Most of the time, these are places that occupy a place in our hearts. Usually places with character. Now, think of those places and think about why they are special. Why much of what we see in these places just gels together in a holistic way. Learning about principles of PlaceCORE for me gave me a special appreciation of planning that came with its development. So that's my sharing. Thank you.